Before the next episode of X Job Downloaded starts, I have a big favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our episodes so far, please can you click on the follow button on your platform. I'm on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon and YouTube. It costs nothing to follow, but makes a real difference to me as a podcast producer. Thank you. This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maleary and this is X Job Downloaded, and today I'm going to interview Mandy Chapman. Now, Mandy was a Metropolitan Police officer. She now volunteers with Essex Police, but she looks after, or custodian I should say, of the beautiful Baloo. Now, thank you so much for coming in. It's grim outside and it'll be a few weeks and hopefully the sun will be shining when people are listening to this. But Mandy, thanks for coming round today. Where did it all begin?
Well, the story with Baloo began a little while back in 2018 when I'd been retired for a little while and I'd already started volunteering with Essex Police. I was not going to be one of those moany retired cops. I was literally volunteering with Essex Police. I was handing out leaflets at recruitment days. After burglaries, we were handing out leaflets, doing all sorts of different things. The Chief Inspector at Chelmsford even had me standing on a cordon.
Who was that at the time?
Oh, gosh, I can't
Jerry
remember.
Parker?
It was Jerry Parker, yes, who loved.
I saw him the other week at West Ham. He's in the Metropolitan Police now.
He was going to the Met just after that.
Yeah.
And I did say to him on the day, I said, Governor, no one ever in the Met managed to get me standing on a cordon and you managed to do it. But yeah, I was doing all sorts with them. And I'd got to know most of the dogs and handlers in Essex Police, great bunch. And I'd watched Baloo working with a handler, a lovely guy, PC Ashcroft. And fantastic dog. She'd come to the force in 2018 and she'd already hit the ground running. Superb dog, Belgian Malinois, fantastic personality. Unfortunately, at the end of October 2018, whilst deployed on a job, Loughton's ground, she was hit by a car. They hit her as they were leaving a crime scene to get away. They looked after her. They rushed her to the nearest vet for sedation, took her up straight away to Dick White's in Newmarket, the best vet in the country, where she was really well looked after. Unfortunately, the first day she was operated on, and the biggest operation is on the rear end where her pelvis was rebuilt with metal rods down into her back legs. The following day, as soon as she recovered, they had to remove her front right leg. That had been too badly crushed to keep. She was then in a crate for a month. And then in December, she was allowed out of the crate and she ran around that room for cuddles. She's the sweetest dog. A typical Belgian Malinois, loves her cuddles, but she has got such a fantastic nature. Ross Ashcroft got the dog back, cuddled her. She was lovely to be back home with her family. And I was one of thousands, literally over 2,700 people came forward to look after Baloo. But luckily, I was already vetted by Essex Police, already part of the team that knew her and knew how to look after her. Because initially, it was 5 to 6 hours a day of massage therapy and other therapies and works in conjunction with Writtle University College to look after her. And Writtle have looked after her superbly ever since. We still go for weekly or fortnightly hydrotherapy, magnet therapy, laser treatment. They've been astonishing in her recovery. She is 30 kilos of fun, muscle and strength. She does 5K canine cross runs. She's a phenomenal dog.
Yeah, she is. I was lucky enough to meet her earlier on and she is absolutely beautiful. Where did it start for you though? I mean, where are you from originally?
Originally, I moved from the northwest all the way down to London at the time in 1983, all those years ago. The only forces recruiting at the time were the Metropolitan Police in West Midlands. So I was working in Manchester at the time for House of Fraser, and I got the letter from the Metropolitan Police, and I thought, well, if you're going to move, you may as well move 200 miles. So I did. I joined the Met, and I did 2 years probation on Southwark Borough. Then I did 3 years plainclothes on the M District Crime Squad, where I learned a lot from some incredible people. And then I returned to uniform because all I ever wanted to be was a dog handler. So it was a bit of a shock for a few people to suddenly have a woman working with them. We had to suddenly find a room for a female locker room at the base. And so we started there in 89. I got my first pup, and I started on the streets of southeast London with my dog in March 91.
And where was the base then?
It was at Catford.
Oh, okay.
I did used to get told off for answering the phone Catford Dogs, because there was a famous dog track there, and apparently you're supposed to answer the phone much more professionally than that. But I did answer it as Catford Dogs and was told off many times for doing that.
Hilarious. Was 83. I did a podcast with a lovely, lovely man by the name of Alan Evershed, and he was a chief superintendent down in Southwark around that sort of time.
Yes, he was my boss for quite a while, and we also worked together on the opening ceremony of the International Association for Women Policing Conference in the 90s. We worked together on that, the parade of flags, we had pipers, we had drum bands. Lovely man.
The circle is complete.
Gentleman. He's a gentleman.
He is a gentleman.
He does walking tours, I believe, in London.
He does.
He's an amazing man.
He's a volunteer at the Tower of London, and I'm up there with him. There's a group of us, and that's how I know him from the
you
from
must
the
give
Tower.
him my love. I'd love to buy the man a pint.
I will.
Again.
I will
or probably
get you.
a very expensive whiskey.
No, he does. He's not a huge drinker, but I will
I'll
speak
buy him
to him
whatever
later
he
on.
would like.
Oh no! In fact, you get mentioned, or that event gets mentioned in his podcast.
Well, it was superb. It was been remembered for many, many years.
Yeah. No, well, there you go. Small world. So you're at Catford Dogs.
Yes.
What was that like? I mean, look, the world is evolving in the police service, thankfully, and people are more accepting of other people now, I hope. But what was that like as probably one of the first women dog handlers?
Yes, I was the first Southeast female. I'd say there was no women's locker room. My locker did a tour of, it was in a corridor for a while, then it was in the ladies' loo, then it was in the traffic warden's locker room, which was on the top floor, so my muscles were getting stronger, carrying my kit bag that far. Yes, to be honest, there was several dog handlers who were really not happy to have a woman there, but there were a couple of older dog handlers and younger dog handlers. It was regardless of age. Some really supported me, and
Good.
they were fantastic, helped me a great deal with my dog. It didn't matter about age or service. You had trouble with the boys in the job, but never with the men in the job. And I could think that has been the case for my 30 years service.
But I think that's always been the case. I think
Absolutely.
there's always been, petty jealousies, face fitting. Somebody, they've moved in from a different borough or district, and all of a sudden they're going into a clique. Mm-hmm. It is a club. At the end of the day, the police service is it's still an exclusive club. I believe in that. I know people have let us down, even us retired.
Yes.
But
Yes,
I still
indeed.
believe it's a club, and it's probably the best club in the world.
It can be, and that's very much the case for dog handling, because dog handling is the only department you go into that affects you 24/7, 365. You take the best bit of kit you can ever be given in policing, you take it home. That bond is incredible. You and the dog are never apart. The only time I've ever been apart from my police dogs is 1 week a year when I go snow skiing. And obviously you cannot take your dog snow skiing because, apart from that, they'd probably be better than me at skiing as well. But that's the only time I've ever been apart from my dog. So you've got that incredible bond. And you'll never stop learning. And good dog handlers will always look out for each other and will always help each other. So I never had an issue with good dog handlers, because they'll want you to succeed. They'll want you and your dog to be the best you can be. So when I look back, it's the weaker people and the weaker dog handlers that you would have an issue with, and that I and others had an issue with. And it's not just being a female. I look at the other handlers that I worked with that had issues with a couple of the bullies, and you think, those bullies, they were never good dog handlers. They were never happy at home.
No.
And, it's that type all the time.
And if they weren't bullies there, they'd be bullies somewhere else.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it is, like I say, the police is the police, and
it's reflective of society. It's the same in any occupation. I think it's amplified particularly in policing, I think.
Yeah, and things like the case you report, I do find, particularly sad, because I know how hard some senior managers work to prevent things from... And I know how hard the majority of police officers work to prevent things from going wrong. I mean, I'm not going to get into the depth of the report, but, they're hard-working coppers. And if things happen, sometimes they happen because there's no alternatives, the searches and things like that. But so you're at Catford Dogs. I can't say that without smiling now. And so you would have covered the whole of South East London, or were
Yes.
you pan?
Yeah,
pan
covered the
London?
whole of South East London. With my first dog, he didn't stay very long. He was a massive dog. I used to work with a very tall chap who had a very small bitch, and it just looked as though we had the wrong dogs. You know, I would be standing there at 5'6" with this very big dog. He would be standing there at 6'2" with this very small dog, and we just looked ridiculous as if we had the wrong dogs. But great fun. But he didn't work for very long. He just was a bit scared out on the streets, and then I got a super dog, second one, and I just absolutely loved it, and was lucky enough to work with some fantastic people. And just loved everything about dog handling. The thirst for knowledge, the fact that you're always improving, you're always learning. You learn from other people every time you're training. And I specialised with my second dog. He was a firearms search dog. So not the dogs that assist the firearms teams when they're searching, but searching for firearms and weapons.
Yeah.
So that would take me beyond South East London. And so I started to get to know the rest of London a little bit better as well.
Did you run a GP, general purpose dog,
so
as well?
So yes, I only ever worked general purpose dogs, and I worked 4 German Shepherds. And the last 2 dogs I worked as victim recovery dogs.
Right.
And blood detection, what we used to call human remains dogs.
Yes. So with being in South East London, you've got your Millwalls and all your other stuff. What was that like, tipping out to... Because people listening to this have never been scared. I've been scared. You know, and because you've got that, and I say it often, but when you're on CID, you've got a bit of plastic that will get you round on a tube, but you think that's going to save your life if you start challenging someone. But actually, as a full-on frontline officer, the dogs and the horses would, public order and all that. What was that actually like?
Yeah, I've been we've policed Millwall and various other football matches, and I can remember on one occasion, you're listening over the radio and you look around and realise that, the people around you, the units around you are being pulled away to deal with outbreaks of violence. And you're looking forwards and realising that you've been left alone. And there was 4 dogs and handlers. I was one of them. And you're looking at a group of a couple of hundred that are moving towards you, realising you've got no backup. And then you watch them start tipping the bottle banks over. And they start then throwing those at you. And you realise that you are going to have to shout for assistance. And that rarely happens where the dog section shout for assistance, which we did. We had to. And we then, got those several hundred running at us. And there is a point where we have had to withdraw. And as we are withdrawing, it was along Ilderton Road, South East 16. As we are withdrawing, the sight of a V shape of horses at full run with batons raised towards you, all it needed was the cry of the Valkyries playing in your ear in the background. To see them coming towards you, followed by a shield serial. You literally breathe in and let the horses past, and then you fall in. Unfortunately, only 3 dogs could fall in behind because the sergeant was already injured with a collarbone injury, and his dog was injured. But the 3 of us fell in behind the horses, and we won the day. We were able to push them back. But what sticks with me from that day is that amongst those hundreds that were attacking us was the children.
Yeah.
And I mean children. I don't mean teenagers. I mean children under the age of 10 that were picking up bottles and rocks, and they took apart somebody's front garden wall and were throwing rocks at us. And they were under 10. And I think that's what struck me most. They get swept up in that violence, and you wonder how they are now. Did they continue along that road of violence? So I think the violence I've seen is something that stays with you, not just at football, outside pubs and so on.
When you see someone who's been glassed and their wounds are so horrendous.
And also really how you become accustomed to it. You're on your knees helping somebody and dealing with things, and then you walk away once the incredible London ambulance service deal with them. You walk away, and it's later when you sit down and have a cup of tea and think, gosh, I walked away with that and almost dealt with it as commonplace. And you think, gosh, we shouldn't be dealing with this as if it's commonplace. That was awful.
But the thing is that what goes with those incidents comes the humour, which if you had a fly on the wall, and if they were listening to the humour and the banter that takes place, it's second to none. I mean, I would imagine that military humour is probably very similar.
Yes, yeah.
But if you didn't have that humour, sometimes you wouldn't get through that event or that evening, where people, taking the mickey out of each other or what have you.
Absolutely. I mean, I did the series in, I think it was 2010, the last series of Sending the Dogs.
Oh, did you?
So I had, oh yes, I got teased mercilessly for that. As you can imagine, I apparently said on camera that I had the prettiest dog in the Met. Well, I did. I stand by it. But I had a cameraman with me for a couple of weeks, fantastic guy called Chris. And he was just really amazed at the amount of abuse we get from just Mr. and Mrs. Ordinary.
Yeah.
You know, you'd pull up in the stripy Mondeo estate next to somebody in traffic who's clearly holding a massive iPhone to their ear, and you'd toot the horn gently and say, please don't use your phone. And they go, what? Please don't use your phone. I wasn't using my phone. Oh, yeah. Pull over, and you'd say, you know, please don't use your phone. You know, it distracts you, and you couldn't see me in the police car next to you. And they'd be abusive or whatever. So then you'd start to talk about giving them a ticket, and then they realise the seriousness of it and then admit it. And you think, well, why didn't you just say, it was an important call? And I'd say, yeah, I appreciate that, but, you know, please be careful because you're distracted and you might have an accident and it is an offence. And, you know, it takes away the chance of giving them a warning. And he was astonished at how rude people were and how much abuse we take daily in, you know, South East London and so on. And yeah, so it's quite an eye-opener for him, bless him.
And the problem is that the authors of some of these reports and the damning exercises that have taken place of the Met and all the other forces, they haven't experienced that side. They haven't experienced a 10-year-old kid or a 9-year-old kid who's running crack cocaine and heroin round for their drug dealer. All they've spoken to is the parent of that child who says, oh, my child was strip searched. Well, why were they strip searched? But the public at large, and I stand by this, still like the police. The majority of the public. They'll moan. Oh, I didn't get that. It used to be, I got done for speeding. Now it's like nobody's attending my burglary. That's how it's evolved. But actually, they still call us or call the police when they want something. But the police have got some things to change. I get that. When you're down there, how long were you in that particular section?
At Catford.
At Catford, yeah.
Yeah, well, I stayed at Catford working the dogs. Then there was a change in how we worked, and a few of us were split. Some of us were sent to Erith on what was the old R district to work. So there was some of us at Erith, and we were split into smaller groups. That was a little bit easier. I loved it. That was the shortest journey I had to work. So at the time I was living at Greenhithe. So I had a slightly shorter journey to work for a very short period of time, which was great. We found that a little bit easier because at the time the Met was working the same shifts. So we were actually working with the same shift of people on each area where we were at each borough. So they got to know you. They knew how hard you would work. You would go and look for anything and you would search all the time. So that was really good. You built up a rapport with the people you were working with. And then obviously we had a change of senior officer again or something, I don't know. And we all went back to Catford again. But so I was always based southeast. But I think once I became a victim recovery handler as well, I was then, and the blood detection work really took off. I was then working all over the Met and beyond. So I was working outside the Met quite a bit as well then. So, but yeah, South East London was always, you know, my favourite patch to work.
Was home.
I particularly loved working that area. If a car went missing, you know, if a car was stolen from a certain area, I'd have an idea of what estate it might be found on or looked at, or, you know, I'd know where to have a little look first for it.
And maintaining that continuity within working with the same shifts, you got to know the personalities that you're working with.
Yeah.
They got to know you, but you also got to know the local intelligence around the same individuals, because every shift may have a different target or they'll be discussing different people, but you would know who you were going after. Yeah,
when we were working those smaller areas, and we were predominantly working on our districts, which is Greenwich, Bexley Heath and so on. We were predominantly working that, but we'd also assist on the other boroughs like Lewisham, Peckham and Croydon and so on when that area needed some extra cover. But we would finally get the chance to get to know people. And I can remember one week of night duty, we arrested the same burglary team 3 out of those 7 nights.
Yeah.
And one lad even knew my dog's name and was saying, "Oh, Bray, miss, I'm over here, Bray, ouch, you know, because he tried to run away from my dog for the 3rd night in a row that week, you know, and I just said, keep still.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, why do you keep running? When I got hold of him and, you know, called my dog off to leave, which he did. And held on to him and obviously arrested him again for burglary. But, you know, he was out again the next night.
Yeah.
And guess what? The next night he was arrested again. But, yeah, you got to know your burglars. They knew you were fair with them because I was always fair with people, spoke to them normally.
Yeah.
I mean, some people just continue to be abusive, but it's not personal. It's for the uniform, isn't it? So
Yeah, absolutely.
there's
Yeah.
no point in taking, you know, they were direct, very personal and nasty comments to you, but there's no point in taking it personally because, you know, people, but I would say to people, it's cops and robbers. You know, look at how many you've got away with. You've been caught today or tonight. Just take it on the chin. In we go. And people would quite often just go, well, I suppose you're right. And in they go.
And they'd be as good as gold. If you're in Tesco's and they saw you and they recognise you, they'd be as good as gold, but most of the time. But yeah, it's a nice area because you've got a real mixture of, you know, you've got your Brixtons and your Claphams and all, you know, it's a very, very diverse.
I love it. I love it. Every ground's got a really nice mixture, I think. And all of it, as we always used to joke, if you took a wrong turn in and went down a dead end, all of it's got to be policed, you know, because you pretend that you've gone down there on purpose.
Yeah.
But I think everywhere, you know, you've got different things and everyone deserves to see you as well. But I would always slow down and make sure if somebody looks, you give them a wave or, you know, and take the chance to say hello sometimes.
Yeah,
when you've got a dog, when you get out with the dog, people will talk to you far more readily than they will if you're just a normal officer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I've had so much intel. You know, when I've been exercising my dog or, you know, even just walking to a scene with my dog, people will talk to you and take that opportunity as well.
Yeah. And you become a focal point, don't you? And the thing is, and you alluded to it earlier on, it is a 24/7 job because you can't just put your dog in the locker and hope that it's going to be there the next morning. You have to take it for a walk, feed it, vets, the whole lot.
3 a.m, trying to get some tablets into them if they've got an upset tummy or something else. It's something that impacts your life throughout. And the rules around exercising your police dog are huge. You know, you can't be near a road. You've got to be not in a public park or everything else. And there's lots of rules. And I've been very lucky to have access to land that I can run my dogs on. So I've always been very lucky.
When I was a young PC, they shall remain nameless, but they'll be listening to this at some point. They let their dog go for a run over a field and it caught a sheep.
Oh, no.
Oh, you can just imagine the ramifications of that because it's quite rural. And, and what was training like? I mean, you talked about the body recovery blood dogs. I mean, what was that like?
I think your training courses, I mean, I've been, you know, at Keston, I've met some of the best trainers that you could ever come across. They're all highly experienced, really knew their craft, particularly the victim recovery instructors I've had. Just phenomenal people. I mean, and love their craft. Particularly, as I say, the victim recovery is 90% really is about the handler and what you see, what you're looking for in nature. And we're looking at people who have disposed of bodies and body parts. So you're looking really at what the handler can see. And then the rest is really what we then do with the dog and how we probe the ground and get the dogs to work. So, you know, I've been lucky enough to be able to work with those people and then to train with other colleagues. We talk to each other about jobs that we've been on, the results we've had. We adjust the training all the time, learning from when bodies have been found and how they've been found. And that's evolving all the time because we found that people were becoming far more forensically aware, having watched programs like CSI.
Yeah.
So, you know, how it evolves has just been phenomenal, but we've got to keep learning and we've got to keep sharing that information. And I think that has been a fascination. It sounds very morbid, but learning all the time. And it's a very powerful thing to keep that learning and to share that learning. And that's something that we do nationally.
Yeah.
And that passion is really, really important and very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what did success look like did you work on any jobs where you recovered body parts?
Yes, and recovered people as well. And I have to say that I've got to say 99% of the reason we all do it is for the families. I suppose supposedly we should say, it's 100% for the job, you know, to get evidence and everything. I've got to say, from all the handlers that do it, 99% we're doing it for the families.
Yeah, I agree.
To get their loved one back so that, you know, we've got closure for the family and 1% for the force to get their investigation and so on. But we're doing it for the families.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not if we start a search at the rear of a premises where a burglar's escaped the house, and several gardens further along we find them in a shed, bark, bark, yep, they're handcuffed and taken away. That's a high five moment. When we're searching woodland and we find a body buried or found, it's not a high five moment,
No.
but we're very proud of our dog.
Absolutely.
We're very pleased to do that, but it's not a high five moment. But we're very, very happy to do that, and we're proud of our dogs. So it's a real mix of emotions to do that. But as a team, when I've been involved in that, we are proud of what we've achieved. And yes, I've been lucky a number of times to have done that. And to do that, you are proud of your dog to do it. And I have on occasion deployed my dog, and you think, gosh, this is a bit of a tick box. It's a bit far-fetched. I don't think really we're going to find anything here. And then your dog just does something absolutely amazing, and you think, right, well, she's given me an indication there, so can you dig there, please? And then 6 hours later, I get a phone call. You're not going to believe this. I said, go on. Well, yeah, 4 feet down, we found a body. And then you have to act all smug. Yes, well, I knew that.
I knew that all along.
Yes, I knew all along. You think, and at the end of the phone, you're going, wow, that was what she was telling us all along.
And the thing is, you become the unsung heroes and heroines of the job, because the headlines will show Metropolitan Police recover body from a shallow grave or from a grave. Yeah,
I remember when that particular story that I mentioned just then came out. There was no mention of the dog, and that's fine, because I know, and I'm really proud of what she did that day. But it just came out.
Can you say the job?
No, I won't, because
no, that's fine.
Yeah, but it was in southeast London, and it was a dispute between two drug dealers.
Right.
But the incredible thing is that he'd been missing for over 6 months, and the dog actually gave the indication from a tree. She started to indicate along a branch, and then moved her nose along the branch, down the trunk, reversed away from the trunk, and then indicated on an area of slightly disturbed ground, which didn't look particularly interesting, but then was indicating on the ground, and that's where they started to dig, and there he was. And you just think, wow.
Yeah.
And obviously the forensic archaeologist said, obviously, when they were digging down, I love the fact they have the smallest trowel, but then again, if you're being paid that much per day, you would have a small trowel. But when they dug down, obviously the tree roots had been cut to make the hole for the body. So obviously he'd been missing from April, and this was later in the year, at the end of the summer. So the tree roots have been drawing from this hole where the body was decomposed for the whole of the summer and into the autumn. So the forensic archaeologist explained that the tree had drawn on that, and it explained it to me. But phenomenal. But you don't do it for notoriety, and apart from anything else, it kind of puts a little bit of a target on you and your dog as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is that aspect as well.
But like you say, when there is that success in your heart, it's like, yeah, we did that. Yeah,
it's like, and you're just so proud of your dog, which I always was. My dogs were just lovely and just what they did.
Did you? I've got to ask this because I know we talk about public order, but I always used to, if I heard the horses behind me, I'd thinking, oh my life. And if I heard a dog barking, I think, here we go, I'll be number one on the list. But they always used to wear the little booties, didn't they? I don't know if they if there was glass and what have you. I remember going to a training set and they had these little, I suppose they're like Kevlar boots that the dogs had on to prevent the glass from the bottles or the petrol going into their pads.
I had them for searching for the victim recovery dogs. I had them for if we were searching a fireground.
Right.
We did that a couple of times when we were searching to see if there's anybody had been caught within the fire.
Yeah.
We had them there, but you have to get the dogs used to it very early on.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they walk really, really strangely. They walk, lifting each leg, flicking them out.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, so you have to get them used to them when they're young, if possible. Otherwise they walk almost like a very distorted Bambi, flicking their legs out to the side, trying to flick the booties off. So yeah, if you're gonna do it, you have to get them used to it very early on. It's hilarious.
I thought you were going to say that they try and pull them off with.
Oh, some will. Yeah, some will. They don't like them, but yeah, I always get my dogs and I get handlers used to picking their dogs up because 9 times out of 10 when you go to a break-in, they've broken glass to get in.
Yeah.
So I would always pick my dog up carry them over the threshold to get into a premises, because the last thing you need is a cut pad, because then the dog's off for a week or more to get over a cut pad.
Yeah.
So, I'd often do that, or your jacket would come off to go over a fence, barbed wire fence or anything else, to make sure the dog doesn't get cut.
A friend of mine, Kevin Rowe, he'll be listening to this. He's out in Spain now. I went to a burglary in Chelmsford, not far from the memorial, which we'll come on to later. Burglary at a church. I was the night DC. I thought, I'll turn up. And all of a sudden I hear, "Please, dog, stand still." And his dog is coming down the aisle at me. I was like, oh, my life. And he stopped. Of course he stopped, because I'd stopped, but I was absolutely petrified. It was a land shark who was coming up the aisle at me. But absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, never be the one moving. Always be the one standing still when there's a land shark loose. Yeah. Don't be the interesting one moving or shouting. Always let that be the bad guy.
What were the highlights? I mean, I would imagine you've had a number of highlights in the police service in particular. What was the highlight?
Gosh, so many. The things that my dogs have done, the people that they found, and not just the criminals that they found. I've got to be honest. I mean, over the years, my dogs have found amazing people. My last dog, she was just phenomenal. I've been blessed with 4 dogs working them, and they found some amazing people. I got commended in 2014 when I'd finished. I went back for that one because Carly detained somebody. It was a fantastic chase and a big scrap that we had with him, and he'd been involved in a number of armed robberies and all sorts of really high-level crime, and that was a fantastic job, which we received the Assistant Commissioner's commendation from Crestedick, and I got that in May 2014 for her. So we'd actually finished in the October 2013, just after over my 30 years. But we did some amazing things. But with my second dog, I can remember it was just after the terrible tragedy with the Soham girls, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. Just after that, we had 2 young girls go missing on Bexley Heath ground. And it was all so fresh in our minds. And I was working with another handler. And we'd searched all the wooded areas, the parks and everything else. And we were just wondering where on earth else we could search. And for some reason, I don't know why, it just came to me, right, let's search the car park at the top of Westwood Lane. And he said, "Why do you want to search a car park?" I said, "Well, because they can't be far. They cannot be far." And we had some of the parents in police cars. Some were stayed at home. They cannot be far away. And I just let my dog, and he was a big dog, big German Shepherd, and he'd had some really good results. And I just let him go down the far side of the car park that went onto sort of just some shrubs and bits and pieces. I didn't want him in between the cars. And I let him go down the far side. And I can remember Jeff saying to me, "Well, if 2 little girls had been in the car park, someone would have called it in." I said, "Oh, no, I just want to have a look down here." And I can never explain to this day why I had this thought. And I just watched him go along the back line of these cars. And Jeff was driving around the car park, speaking to people, spreading the word. And I just watched my dog, and he stopped, backed up. His tail started wagging. I thought, oh. And I caught him up. And as I caught him up, he was between the 2 cars. His ears were down, chilled. And these 2 little girls kneeling either side of him, stroking him. So, of course, I'm a roughy, tufty cop dog handler, aren't I? So I can't speak. I've got this lump in my throat. Oh, thank goodness, they're both safe and well. So I think, well, I must tell somebody else about this. I can't keep this to myself. And I went, "Oh, girls, oh, thank goodness." I've got some hairs on the back of my neck are going up now. So I thought, I've got to say something. Everybody needs to know these girls are safe. So I went, took a big gulp and went, "Got them both. They're safe and well. Westwood Lane car park." And I literally put my hands on the 2 girls and went, "Oh, I'm so glad you're okay. Is this your doggy?"
Oh.
And so I'm chatting. And then somebody over the radio says, "Dog handler, can you repeat?" And I thought, no. That took every inch of me to say that. There's no way I can repeat that. But yeah, and then obviously Jeff managed to say, we're in I think it was the Co-op car park, top of Westwood. Then all we could hear was 2 tones coming and Jeff shouting, "Where are you?" And I said and I was waving my hand like this, and then I could see him coming, and then everyone converged on us. Not a dry eye in the house, and everyone was shouting. And, and I said, and of course, I'm now speaking to the girls, "Did you speak to anyone? Have you been with anyone?" Because we are a good few hundred metres from where they'd gone missing from the house. Oh, because they were walking next door to where the other one lived.
Right.
And I said, "What happened?" And all that had happened is, as they were walking next door, they saw a man and they were frightened. So they ran across the road. The man crossed, nothing to do with them. They then ran across the other road and they've just got lost. And I worked out, bless them, nothing had happened.
Oh.
They just got scared, crossed a few roads, then got lost, and then just were waiting, thinking we didn't know what to do. So happy ending all round. But there's this dog that, the night before had been detaining burglars, and barking at them, close to them, barking at their faces as they're hiding in bushes. Just wandered up to these two girls, ears down, just having a stroke, and they know. He knew he had to find them and he did.
But I just wish the public at large got to see the human side of policing because we are, I get very emotional when I watch stuff on the TV, and we are cut out of the same cloth because we did policing for the human side.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I still
That's why I joined. People say, why did you join the police? And I joined to help people. Also, I mean, it's a terrible phrase of being a poop magnet, should we say. But I joined because of that, because before I joined the police, I was chasing shoplifters around Manchester. I'd scoop up the Pringle sweaters as they threw them on the floor, and I'd scoop them up and still chase them.
Showing your age now, Pringle sweaters.
I know, yeah. From my golf department, I was in the sports shop. But, things would happen in front of me. They still do.
Yeah.
So it was great for policing. But I joined to help people, and I still do that now. That's why I volunteer with Essex Police.
Yeah.
And that's why I volunteer all of my time for a couple of charities now. And that is simply why I joined.
So, I mean, you've gone on this journey with Baloo, and you've got involved in volunteering when you left the Met. What was the inspiration to become a volunteer then?
Just to do something. I wanted to volunteer my time to do things. I also am an ambassador with Dogs on the Streets. Initially, that was in London. I got to know Michelle Clark, who founded that, who is an incredible woman. She's an amazing lady, gives all her time, money, everything to set up that charity. And what that charity does, it looks after the dogs of the homeless, predominantly in London, but they also reach out to Oxford, Milton Keynes, other areas. And what she does is she looks after those dogs. They're all registered. They all have proper collars, harnesses, leads. And every Sunday, she takes a van with a vet and helpers onto the Strand, right by Charing Cross Police Station. And the homeless people know to get there on the Sunday. They'll get a carrier bag, and that's full of 7 days' food for the dog, treats. The dogs are looked at by the vet. They're treated. They have a regular worming and, regular flea treatment and so on. But Michelle doesn't stop there. She actually, these people learn that they can trust Michelle. She's got lots of them off the streets. She's got them into work. She's got them into accommodation. She also looks after dogs where people are in domestic abuse situations and they're trying to get into accommodation. A lot of accommodation won't take them because they've got a dog. So Michelle will look after the dog at their kennels, their sanctuary, for a period of time until they can then get into accommodation that will allow dogs. So she'll look after the dog, and you go to a lot of kennels and there's lots of barking, there's lots of noise. Now you go to their kennels, it's chilled. You've got classical radio playing and everything else, and you go in and the dogs are happy. She knows every dog's name, and they're all getting treats, and they've all got beds, and she's just a phenomenal lady. She's written 2 books. And inspired by her dog Poppy, and they are phenomenal. Go on Amazon if you can and support the charity if you can.
We'll put all the links into
absolutely
the
phenomenal charity they are, and she has made a difference to so many people. So I'm proud to be ambassador for that. And I started that when I was still working in the Met, and she makes a difference to so many people. You get, and that's another thing the job has done. It's allowed me to meet incredible people, and as I've said that. Everyone has a story. Take that time. I've met people. I've arrested people and I've taken the time to chat to them. I mean, yes, some people will just continue to abuse you, but it's cops and robbers, isn't it? Just let them abuse you. It's not personal. But 9 times out of 10, you can chat to people. They've all got their story. They've all got a reason. Yeah, I've chatted to people and I've met people. I can remember stopping to get something to eat in the Asda in Bexley Heath once, and a chap came up to me and said, "You don't recognise me, do you?" And I thought, oh gosh, here we go. Am I going to get abuse and stuff? And I said, "I'd like to introduce you to her." And I said, "Sorry, who?" He said, you nicked me and you said, when are you going to finally meet a girl that's going to stop you getting involved in all this petty rubbish? And I gave you a load of crap, he says, and I said, but here she is. And I did meet a girl and I stopped getting involved with them lads, and we're now married and we've got a couple of kids and stuff. And I said, oh, brilliant. And I shook his hand and, and she smiled and everything else. And yeah, he finally met a girl, stopped hanging around with the lads that were getting him into trouble, and he's settled down and had a family. But there are people you can sometimes get through to. There are people you can talk to. Not everyone, but some you can get through to and talk to. If you don't, well, you tried.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not a soft touch, but so what if people think you're a soft touch? Just talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely agree, because, we're all one, I've used this phrase, but we're all one pint away from being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And we're all one mortgage default from, I say all, but, a lot of people, one mortgage default from being homeless.
Yeah. That's what they say. You're all three bad decisions, aren't you, away from being homeless or something?
Yeah. I wake up in the morning and I'm lucky. I've got a roof, I've got food, I've got a beautiful garden, etc., etc. So 3 lovely dogs. But yeah, I mean, it is fantastic. And your other volunteering, how did you get involved with volunteering for Essex Police? Because this is really important, that anyone listening, if you've got time, the police have never been so needy of people to volunteer for them, because society's growing and they need that extra support. How did you get involved with that?
Well, that was through Neighbourhood Watch, to be honest. It was literally, there's an 80-year-old chap in my village. He wanted me to help with the Neighbourhood Watch, bless him. So I started doing that. I then, through a meeting I went to with him, met a lovely lady called Brenda Cross. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. Again, another phenomenal lady who unfortunately battled cancer for many, many years and lost her battle recently, but a phenomenal lady. And she was setting up something called Dog Watch, which I've been involved in the Met. And so we were introduced, and we both have a love of tea and cake. So we would often meet at Perrywoods at Tiptree.
Yep.
Lovely place to go. And we would have our meetings there, and we would talk about setting up that. I'd get involved in Farm Watch and other sort of watch, where we'd bring people together to look out and for to help prevent crime. And it was utilising some of the things that I knew, and networking, because I think networking is one of our strongest things, and we can do that on a local level with our neighbours. We can do that slightly bigger, with the police service. I do that each year with the International Women's Day event. I work together with Essex Police, Fire and the Ambulance Trust. We put on a massive event every year. We do it for virtually nothing, because we do it online as well. We bring it on Teams. So, networking is our strongest thing. I've been a part of the British Association for Women in Policing since 96. I won an award in 95. My father said at the time, there's a thin line between brave and stupid. Still don't know which side he put me on that, but anyway. So I won an award then and became part of BAWP then.
What was the award for?
It was for dealing with 2 armed criminals on 2 separate occasions. So, as I said, I'm not quite sure which side of the brave or stupid bit I fall on, but it was disarming 2 armed criminals. I looked down the wrong end of a gun on the first occasion. Second occasion, I didn't give him the chance to. So, yeah, it was for those 2 things, those 2 events. And I got to go to America to collect that award. So the BAWP work, that is really the epitome of networking, where we bring people from all across England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland together for mentoring, coaching, as well as an annual event which I help to run for the National Awards and CPD event, which is in June each year, which I'm in the midst of planning for, which it's a bit like a wedding. As soon as you finish one event, you start planning the next one. It rolls on. And this year we had 548 nominations for our 11 categories.
Wow.
So it's huge every year. And the quality of the work that comes in every year is phenomenal. And I wish we could share it all. Because, when people criticise, and some of the criticism, as we've discussed, is justified when we see what's in the news. But when you see what people are doing day in, day out, and the work that goes on out there, it's phenomenal. And there is some amazing people out there doing this work. So that is hugely rewarding. And that's why I do that for nothing as well. So there's that volunteering I do, as well as just little stuff in my own community, and I think we can all do our bit. But,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, as far as doing stuff locally, that started very early through Brenda. And through some great people I started to meet in Essex Police. And I was just hugely impressed by the people I was meeting who, swan-like, you know, they appeared to be
serene on top.
serene on top.
Yeah.
There was so much work I realised very quickly going on in the background.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if people got involved, there's a lot that can be done.
Yeah,
and
there is.
There's a lot of cops that are working really, really hard that we can help and we can do more. And I think perhaps some people are a bit shy to get involved, and I get that. Perhaps they've spoken to the wrong people and haven't been encouraged to get involved. But there is a lot that we can do and get involved in.
I interviewed a chap recently, Mike Neville, who ran the super recognisers for the Met, and his volunteers got recognised by the Home Secretary because of the work they did around CCTV and what have you. And there are so many people that would like to be Agatha Christie and Hercule Poirot, and they can do their little bit to actually help the police service with so many different things. And yeah, I know they have volunteer days and what have you, and hopefully that we can bolt something onto this so that people can get involved. But how did you get involved with the Police Dog Memorial? Because, I mean, for me, we did the car parks. There were a group of us that did the car parks on that day. Paul Nichols, I've known him for a long time. In fact, his grandfather was my dad's first sergeant.
Oh, wow.
So, and his dad was in the job, and his other grandfather I used to deliver newspapers to when I was 14. So I've known Paul one way or another for a long time. But how did you get involved in that?
Well, Paul got in touch with me because I think my dog had done quite a big job in the Met at the time, the one I mentioned. And he knew that I lived in Essex as well. And he contacted me and we met up, and he was talking about what he wanted to do, his dream, which I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd love to help, be honoured to help him. And I also knew John Doubleday, the sculptor, the world-renowned sculptor. And a friend of mine is his gardener.
Right.
So my thought was, John Doubleday has a studio on his property where he has students come in. And my thought was, I wonder if we could get John to get one of his students to do something for us. I never in a million years imagined we would get, a world-renowned sculptor to do our memorial. Yeah. So, my friend John spoke to him, and John Doubleday said, yes. He's just an amazing character. I mean, what a blessing to have met him. Yeah. Talk about people with stories. My goodness me, every meeting with John Doubleday was an honour. My goodness me, if you can interview him, I'll arrange that. He's amazing. Yeah, I'd love to. Oh, my goodness, I'll arrange it. Fascinating man. So, he arranged that we could go and see him. So Paul and I arrived all suited and booted, super smart. And I said, Paul, if we can just get him to arrange us to, perhaps have a day when his students are here, that'd be amazing. So we arrived there, and John, effervescent as ever with his arms in the air. Oh, come. I've had a little thought. I've done a little maquette. So he'd done this sort of clay model of a standing handler with a dog. And we're sort of, Paul and I couldn't speak. We're looking at this thing and we're sort of, what you think one of your students would be interested? He said, gosh, no. Oh, I'd like to do this myself. Oh, no. And we're sort of looking at each other and, are you all right, you two? Are you okay? And we said, you'd like to do it? Why, yes, of course. Perfect. And we had tears in our eyes.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And we just didn't know what to do. And he said, I think we'll have a cup of tea. I think we need to sit down and have a cup of tea. So we sat down and we were just blown away. And I've got to say, John is the most generous person. We could not have achieved that memorial without him. And initially we were going to have the memorial at the National Arboretum, but no, John Doubleday had an exhibition at Oaklands Park, and the maquette was there. The museum saw it. It was then supported by Chelmsford Council. They wanted it at Oaklands Park, which was fantastic for us. And it just carried on from there.
Fantastic.
And it's there for everyone to see. And whenever I'm in Chelmsford, I have to go there. And I actually tweeted a photo. I took Baloo there a couple of weeks ago. And Baloo, obviously 3 legs, she's a Belgian Malinois. She sits very upright. And because the German Shepherd in the memorial is my dog Carly.
Right.
A very big German Shepherd. And because of her size, she's got quite a big ruff around her chest, a very big ruff of hair. And because of her size, she sits slightly head forward. And I'll attach this picture, if I can, to this sort of podcast.
Yeah,
and
please do.
I took
We'll
the
use
photo, and Baloo sits very upright, and the photo, the shadow of Baloo falls on the memorial. And when you look at it, I've shown this picture to everyone, the shadow is Carly.
Really?
Because you look at the shadow, the dog is slightly leaning forward and has got a big ruff, and it isn't Baloo. And I've shown it to everyone who's gone, oh,
spooky.
That's Carly's shadow. That's spooky, and that's the word everybody uses. And you think she was saying hello that day. It's amazing.
Brilliant.
But yeah, we'll attach it. And
please do, and we'll use that.
People can make their own opinion, but
photo.
It's amazing.
What I mean, you had the great and the good from the police dog world there.
Yeah, we had people come from all over, and it was fantastic to bring everyone together.
Dame Cressida attended, Chief Constable Pippa Mills, I believe that she was there. Yeah. Roger Hurst,
Rob Hanson, who was then the MPCC lead for dogs, he came as well. Pippa Mills is now the MPCC lead for dogs, police dogs. Yeah.
And I mean, it was an amazing, as I say, myself, Simon, Tim, and a few of the others. We went and did the car parking, so it was lovely to be part and parcel of it. My brother turned up in his City of London gear, but it was a great event. But your work goes so far beyond the memorial and everything else. I mean, you've already said about you'll go to events and what have you. But this costs you money, Mandy. You know, your dedication is such that this costs you money. But you've got the Baloo Fund, haven't you?
Yeah, we set up Team Baloo Fund. It's teambaloofund.org online, and that tells you Baloo's story, and it's got some lovely pictures of her. But what we were doing is initially when Baloo was injured in 2018, and I got her in the December, Ross kept her for Christmas. He still sees her, still visits her. She's all over him. It's lovely.
I bet.
And she doesn't stress when he leaves, which is nice as well. But I then took her to see Force Control Room and everyone who was on duty that night, because they heard the screams when she was hit.
Oh, yeah.
The stress of her being rushed to the vets. They didn't think she'd survive. She did. She was well looked after by Essex Police. And as Mr. Harrington and all of Essex Police have supported her through her journey. And she's repaid the force. And she became the well-being dog following, me taking her to meet everyone who was on duty that night. And then a number of events happened. We had obviously the horrendous incident with the lorry, with the people who passed away.
Yeah.
And I visited that team. And supported by the Trim. We don't intend to tread on anyone's toes as far as the Trim team or other counselling or other support. We're an extra tool with that. In the people will talk to the dog, and in virtue of that, me as well.
Yeah.
So obviously I've had training, and as a result of Baloo doing this visit, Gary Bottrell, incredible man, he's set up Oscar Kilo 9, and there's over 150 dogs now nationally, and 39 of the 43 forces have got Oscar Kilo dogs, and in Essex Police we've got 4. So I've got Baloo and Rex, a Dutch herder, and we've also got Cassie and Claude, 2 gorgeous, sweetest retrievers for the wellbeing dogs in Essex Police. So Brilliant. We go in after there's an incident. But because Baloo's got a special story, I additionally go and do school visits, church groups, scouts, and so on, because she's got that extra story to tell. And though it's sad in the beginning that she was hit by a car and has got this injury, so much good has come from it since that it's a very happy ending. And it goes on. She's now 6. And I always said that I will do these visits while she enjoys them. When you watch her on a visit, laying on her back, having her tummy tickled and having cuddles, you can see how much she enjoys it. And I'll continue to do that. But when I was doing visits, for example, it was to a centre with adults and children with learning difficulties, I noticed they all enjoyed the artworks that they were doing, but they didn't have a lot. So I went back and I bought some bits and pieces, and I went back another day and just dropped them all off. And I thought, with the cost of fuel and everything, because obviously I'm a volunteer, I don't get any mileage expenses or anything else. Thought, yeah, this is starting to cost a bit much. And I'm really supported well by some friends who said, let's put together a Team Baloo Fund. So that's where teamballoofund.org came from. And that's not for money to look after Baloo. Baloo, should she need anything, would be well looked after by the Essex Retired Police Dog Fund.
Who are absolutely fantastic.
They're an amazing group of volunteers. And they're also part of the Association of Retired Police Dog Charities, who are amazing people who look after, when a police dog retires, they are not looked after by the force. They can't be. If a force is looking after its retired dogs, it can't then fund the dogs it's got. So, you know, when they retire, they're looked after by the handler or someone that the handler can trust looks after the dog. So the Essex Retired Police Dog Fund, we help also to raise funds for them, and they will look after retired police dogs. So Baloo would be looked after by them should she need it, and they've looked after her twice when she needed to be x-rayed to make sure all the nuts and bolts in her pelvis are in the right place still. And another time when, bless her, she only got one front paw and she got a blackthorn in it.
Oh, no.
I know.
How's your luck?
I know. And the dignity, when I had to carry her outside to go to the toilet and she glared at me, look the other way. Okay. So you're holding a dog up to go to the toilet and, oh, bless her. But, the wonderful people who run the Essex Retired Police Dog Fund paid for that veterinary treatment as well, which is lovely of them. So it's not to look after Baloo, it's for basically the visits we do. If there's anything that we can help with. And also we have these little crocheted baby Baloos made. So if I do a visit for a child who's having a tough time, anything like that, we take along one of these little baby Baloos to give them. And it's a great comfort for them after a visit. They get to keep a little baby Baloo. And that's made by, it's called Lara's Cottage Crafts. And you can buy those online. She's on Facebook. And also from the Artisans Hub at the Blake Centre.
All the links will be on this page. Okay, so anyone who's listening to this, if you want to contribute, if you want to buy anything, everything will be on the main page for this podcast. Sorry.
Lovely. Yes, so the baby Baloos we buy from that as well. So, yeah, if any donations want to be made to that, because, it does cost me quite a bit, but it's money well spent. And people say to me, why'd you spend all your time doing this and volunteering doing this? And I say to them, come with me.
Oh.
Come with me on a visit. Just watch the smiling faces. Last night I was at the Jaguar Car Club at the Crown at Sandon. What a lovely group of people, and it was lovely. And, as I was leaving, I'm handed a pile of cash. They've donated over £66 to the Team Baloo Fund. And how kind is that? I don't expect anything. I don't ask for anything.
No.
But they asked, do you get expenses and things? And I said, no, I do all this voluntarily. And while they're all fussing her, I was aware of something going on. I wasn't quite sure. I thought it was to do with their evening. But they decided to, have a whip round in a pint pot for the Team Baloo Fund. And how kind's that?
Yeah,
that's really nice.
That's brilliant.
I thought that was very generous. No, it's really appreciated by the fund. And that's happened a couple of times. And every penny of that, is accounted for, and that goes for... everything to do with the work we do.
And I think it's fair to say that the association is the association for the UK.
Yes.
There are other people that may think that they're doing the right thing, but the association, if people want to donate money, do it through the association. Don't do it through any other third parties, just do it.
No, there's for looking after retired police dogs, there's the Association of Retired Police Dogs that covers you can look at them, there's the 18 local retired police dog funds.
Yeah.
And there's then the National Fund for Retired Service Animals.
Right.
That's been set up recently by Lady Bathurst, who I was honoured to meet at Crufts. What a fantastic lady she is. What a character.
I'd like to interview her.
Oh, my goodness, you must. She is just amazing. Wonderful lady. So, yes, if it's if you haven't got a local retired police dog charity, look at the association to see if you have a local one. If you haven't, that's the national charity to go to, the National Foundation for Retired Service Animals. They cover police dogs, prison dogs, the military, the horses, everything. They're phenomenal. Again, very open with their accounts and everything that they do, and just phenomenal people. Pleasure to meet them.
We just want people to steer away from the ad hoc, by any other name.
Yeah.
That's basically...
They're the people to go for. If you want to go national, then that's the one to go for. To be honest, if you went for the national, the NFRSA, and there was a local one, that fund, actually, when I was at Crufts, they were given some money because they said, and the people said, oh, this is for you. And she asked them where they lived. And she said, no, there's actually a fund for that force. And she took that money with those people over to the stand that were there.
Wow.
And it was the West Mercia. And it was the
Pippers.
West Mercia, yeah. And she took the money with the people over to that stand and put it in their pot.
Did you
so
go?
They would never take money from another fund.
No, for another area.
So if you want to be sure, contact the NFRSA or the association to make sure the money goes to the right fund or the right people.
Did you go in the ring at Crufts?
Yes, I was lucky enough to be Pippa Mills's guest last year and this year, and it's phenomenal to see.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And I was so proud to see the hero. I mean, all the hero dogs every year are fantastic stories, but I was so proud to see PC Claire Todd and Stella the Staffy win this year, because Stella the Staffy, what an ambassador for the breed at the time when Stella the Staffy was rescued by the RSPCA, and Toddy took her on. And at that time, Staffies were getting such a bad press, and she became a sniffer dog, and Claire's looked after her. Claire's had her own challenges health-wise, which I'm not speaking out of turn.
No.
That has been shared. She's had her own health challenges and has, overcome those. And Stella's been super. I did love that Stella stole the fluffy microphone cover.
Yeah, I saw that.
Every dog handler would watch that bit and would see that seamlessly Claire bent down with a treat, gave Stella a treat, and flicked the microphone cover back to the cameraman. That's a dog handler for you. That's a proper dog handler who knew what to do and flicked that microphone cover back with a smile. Yeah, you can have that back. But yeah, I was really proud and pleased that she won that. In fact, I did share on my Twitter the coverage. I'm sitting on the red seats ringside, and you see my little pink jacket arms go up in the air.
Brilliant.
Cheering for her when she won it. I was really pleased for her.
Yeah.
It's nice when good people are recognised. I do like that.
Well, I'd like to interview her as well, if at all possible.
Yeah, I'll get it. I will introduce you.
Do you know what? I love your enthusiasm, and you're so passionate about the subject, and you are part of that family, aren't you? That is your...
You never leave it.
It's there with you. It's ingrained, and I think it's fantastic. You've spoken of your highlights, but there must have been down times whilst you were in the... I don't want to finish on a downer. I'm not going to.
No,
but,
there's always some difficult times, but I think that's where the police dog family, the good people, will help each other. I mean, that's when, if something happens, we will see if something's happened, and the dog family will pull together. We will see if one of our colleagues has had a tough time, we will look after each other. We will contact them, and we will say, "Quite a tough break," or one of our colleagues will contact us. My dog failed at this, or this happened, and we'll look after each other. I can remember my last dog, her first bite, her first chase. Your first chase is always a difficult one because it's never quite as you've trained for.
No.
So, and I can remember her first chase, quite a simple chase. The person's run, and he's got a thick black leather jacket on, and he's run. And as he's got to, it was the outside of a basketball court, just on Brixton's ground. And he's run. My dog's got to him. Lovely take on the right arm. But he's just slipped out of the jacket, and he's literally climbed up the mesh fencing, and it's a basketball court. So it's a good 10 metres high, and he's literally gone up it. So, of course, as he slipped out the jacket, she spat the jacket out, and he's already up, and she's jumping at his legs but can't get them.
Right.
So he's got over, and, of course, he's away, and I can't get round to him. And, of course, he's laughing as he's running away, and I'm putting up that he's gone, and she's jumping at the fence and can't get round. And I thought, well, we always say karma, I'll get him another time. Well, I did get him another time.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I did, and she was dragging him out of a bush because he was kicking out at her. And as I'm pulling him out, I recognised him and went, ha, karma. And then I did, obviously, was more professional and did arrest him properly. But I did admit and put it in my nose, karma. But, of course, I had to put that in brackets because obviously I can't mention the fact that I had previous dealings with him. But I said it, so it's in my notes, but obviously not when I gave evidence because why have you put that? Well, you don't really want me to mention that, do you? I've had previous dealing. Oh, I see. So they did understand why I put it. And I got back to the base, had my head in my hands and said, oh, she lost her first chase. And the guys went, how many dogs have you had? You know your first chase is always difficult. Your next one is, she's going to be even more determined. You know she's a good dog. You know she's done this. And then literally a couple of nights later, I'm driving along, the car flashes me, and I'm like, yeah. And I buzz the window down. Mate, round the corner, someone's breaking into a car. And I went, oh, okay. And I thought, because we used to set each other up things, and I thought, is this a setup? And I thought, it might be one of my mates setting me up a little bit of a chase. So I went, okay. So quietly go around the corner, and there's literally this guy hanging out of a car and stuff, and then he leans out and he ran down the middle of the road, and it's a quiet road towards, would you believe, Catford Dogs Track, which is now closed at this stage. And he's running down the middle of the road, and it's a dead end. It goes to the dog track and eventually under an arch to a park. And I'm thinking, is this a setup? I've sent the dog because I, need to catch him because he's obviously broken into this car. Sent the dog, just gets to the archway out of sight, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope she's got him. And then she's dragging him back by the arm, and I thought, yeah, got him. And I thought, oh, it's a good setup, lovely. So I'm running up, and then I look at him and realise it's not a setup, it's a
suspect.
Oh my gosh, it's a proper job. So I get hold of him, and I think, I better tell someone else. I've got a suspect detained, blah, blah, blah. And I thought this was just so I told nobody about this, thinking, it's just a training exercise. I'd better tell the world about this. So, he'd broken into a car. And
excellent.
I never did wonder why this chap was down this anyway, but let's not wonder why this chap was down this dead-end road. But there we go.
Yeah,
So, you go from... My dog's missed a chase, but we didn't know why this guy was running in the first place. The one that did get away probably had something on him he shouldn't have had, or whether he was wanted at the time, I don't know. But he'd ran away from us. We don't know why. He'd ran from a car that everybody else had stood there. And they were angry that he'd run away because obviously then they were being properly searched and everything else. And they said, we don't know why he's run. But so you go from the low of thinking, what was that about? But yeah, I've dealt with much worse things, and they're the things you're not going to talk about because they are awful, and they're the things that stay with you.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's why I do what I do, and that's why I take my dog in. That's why I take Baloo and also Rex in as that sort of icebreaker, as that bit of fun, and also when something serious has happened, because people talk to me and the dog, and I make sure I don't do the counselling, but I make sure I signpost, and I say to people, don't be Mandy. Don't get to the end of 30 years and then sleep for 3 months, and then try and deal with it, because I'm fine now. But I think after 30 years, I was heavily bruised and I was not in a great place, and I'm fine now. But I think we should look after people better.
I agree.
And I say, don't be like me. Talk to each other. I think the best therapy is talking to each other as well as, everything else. And we don't do that now. There are no canteens.
No.
There's none of that talking to each other. I think there's a lot of criticism of what we call this generation. Oh, they don't talk to each other. They do. They might be doing it on Snapchat, and they might be sitting next to each other talking to each other on Snapchat, but they do talk to each other more. And I think they're a bit more open about their feelings than perhaps my generation was and others.
Absolutely.
And particularly that roughy-tufty generation of the 80s and 90s. Let's get on with it, lad, get back out there. But that's why I do what I do, because we need to look after people. I think retention is key. There's a lot into recruitment. Oh. We've got people in the job now as police officers and staff that we need to be looking after.
Yeah, we do.
And I think you've got them in. You've got them trained. You've got them with uniform and equipment. Look after them better. The
sickness management they've got in place, they can identify when there's a trend, when there's a problem. But it's the later in service officers that are struggling more because it's around change. A lot of it's around change and the acceptance of change and how they deal with it. And of course, people's lifestyles change as well. There's no decompression anymore.
No.
There's none of this. The sociability in policing has gone because of the way the shift structures are. The fact that people travel so far to go to work as well, they're not going to kick around after a late turn and go for
There's no curry after the late turn after nights.
No.
You do 7 nights, you'd do a late turn and you go for a curry afterwards. You know, it wasn't a drinking thing. It was just go for a curry.
See in a few days.
Yeah, you'd have one drink perhaps, and then it'd be a pint of Coke or whatever. But it'd be that couple of beers, wouldn't it? You know, a couple of Cokes, and off you'd go. But you would have that decompression time.
Yeah.
And if there'd been a harsh word exchanged, it'd be, cool, you were a bit stroppy after that. Oh, sorry about that, mate. Yeah, God, my head was buzzing. Did you see what happened? No. Oh, blimey, you didn't say. And it would all be dealt with. Whereas now it sort of stays and it goes on. And, you know, I think the chats at the coffee machine are gone. We're all on Teams and things now, and you don't get to speak sometimes, and you think, well, that's a waste of time going to that meeting or being on that meeting because I didn't even really get a chance to say much. Or, well, why were they on it? They didn't even say much, whereas they may have been making copious notes and, you know, away from the meeting, they do a lot of work.
Yeah.
But at the meeting, they don't seem to do a lot.
It is a real shame. Look, I don't think we're going to change it, but I do hope that there are changes made. The reduction in police buildings across the UK, London in particular, that will have a marked impact on community policing. And the police are the community at the end of the day.
And we've got to interact more. There are fewer of us.
Yeah.
Us. You know,
us.
I still
us.
keep saying us, yeah. But there's fewer, so our interaction got to be good. And there's people still whizzing from one call to another. And we know that, you know, from the 80s when I joined, the majority of crime was on the streets, in houses, in public houses and so on. Majority of crime now is online. And we do have a lot of people working in buildings on that crime, and that has to be the case. But we still do need a presence out there.
Well, the other crimes still take, and I'd be interested to see what the figures are. If you took a snapshot of 30 years ago, where we were just getting into the online culture, and what it is today, because there are still burglaries taking place. Yeah, there's not as many armed robberies, I wouldn't imagine. You know, cash in transit, things like that. But all the other stuff, the violence crime, nighttime economy, and all that sort of stuff. There's going to be, well, that's if people report it. Yeah. Because there is a reluctance to report now, whereas before it was always, you know, that people would report because they felt it was their duty. Now the only people that report is because they've got an insurance claim to make. So, you know, from a personal perspective, I would always say to people, report everything. Yeah, I always do. Report everything. You know, when I was in the job, report everything, because unless the district commander knows what's happening in that particular street, you're not going to get any changes. No, I mean, Nick Bracken, I don't know if you ever worked with Nick, but he was in the Met, he was commander in the Met, and he was brought up in East London, not far from Forest Gate, Nick. And there was a burglary down a particular street, and legend has it that people say, well, there's none of this. And he said, well, hold on. At number 32, Mrs. Brown, she had CCTV fitted by her son. And he went through a whole... It's because his parents lived in that road. They still... He was a special constable. He knew what the community were about. And that's what's lost, you know, with a lot of policing now. But no, it's great. And what I would like to say is, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I mean, we talked earlier on about the Dangerous Dogs Act, and we won't go into that one, but, you know, how things have evolved and how you became an instant expert overnight in 1991. You had to be, yeah. All of a sudden, you handled a dog. You must know about pit bulls. Yeah, it's like, really? No. It just didn't happen. But before we go any further, I mean, is there anything you'd like to add, alter or correct? I know that's a phrase that we used to use in the police, but... No, I love my time in policing, so much so, as I say, I volunteer my time now. But I just think, while you can make a difference, do. Just make that difference however you do it, whether you volunteer your time, you know, getting involved in something you love, or just doing your own thing. But if you can, be kind. Take time to, you know, get to know people and do things. Just do things that make you smile. Absolutely. You know, just take time for yourself, whether it's taking time to, you know, go for a walk. But I think, you know, the last few years, I think the COVID years sort of made people realise what was important to them. Yeah. Suddenly, when we couldn't go anywhere, people realised what was important to them. And, you know, tell people around you love them. You don't have to be drunk to tell people you love them. Just tell people how much they mean to you. Get out and enjoy things, you know, enjoy life. Yeah, absolutely agree. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. We will put all your links onto the page, and if people want to get hold of you, you've got Twitter, the whole lot, and we will make sure that people connect with you and the fantastic work that you undertake.
Thank you.
Mandy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.